This is the Pittsburgh Steelers 53-man roster prediction before training camp gets underway. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers are heading into training camp here next week, and there's going to be a lot of position battles going on throughout the training camp and also throughout preseason. But before any of that even gets started, this is who I believe has the best chance to make this roster. So, before I get more into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, and just videos like this. Also, like the video. Now let's get right back into it. So, to start off, let's start off with quarterback. Quarterback, it's pretty easy. The Steelers usually always keep 3 quarterbacks on the main roster. Some teams only keep 2, but the Steelers usually keep 3. They've done it in past seasons, and this season, I believe the 3 quarterbacks that will be kept will be obviously Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and the third being Kyle Allen. So that means that the ones that they cut is John Rhys Plumlee. That's who they cut. The Steelers keep these 3 quarterbacks on the roster. They usually also keep 1 on the practice squad, so Plumlee, he may be going to the practice squad. But this is pretty obvious in terms of the quarterback situation. There's really no battles going on for that 3rd spot. These are probably set in stone. Now, looking at the running back position, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Last season, they only kept 3 on the main roster initially, on the 53-man roster. But in my eyes, this season, they have Cordarrelle Patterson, who's both a running back and wide receiver. So I could keep 1 less receiver, and I'm going to keep 4 running backs. And we all know Arthur Smith likes running backs. He usually keeps 4 on his roster. The Steelers usually keep 3, but I'm going to keep 4 this season. So the 4 being Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, Cordarrelle Patterson, and Deshaun Edwards. I'm going to keep Deshaun Edwards because I believe he'll shine in preseason, shine in training camp, and he may be the underdog that Jaylen Warren was a few seasons ago. So those are the 4 running backs I'm going to keep on the roster. Also, that means that the ones that are being cut are the Michael Pirine, Jonathan Ward, Aaron Shanklin, and Jack Colito. So those are the ones being cut, but I'm keeping 4 running backs. Steelers usually don't do this, but I'm keeping 4. That means moving over to wide receiver, like I said, I'm only going to keep 5 wide receivers instead of 6, in which the Steelers usually keep. So the 5 wide receivers are going to be George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, and Quez Watkins. And also, like I said, Cordarrelle Patterson, he could play both wide receiver and running back. That's why I decided to keep only 5. So Cordarrelle Patterson could also be thrown in there at the wide receiver group if you really wanted to. So those are going to be the 5 wide receivers on the roster. And that means that the ones that are being cut are Jaray Jenkins, Scotty Miller, Deuce Watts, Marquise Callaway, Des Fitzpatrick, and Jacob Copeland. The person who I think may have the best chance of making the roster of those ones being cut is Des Fitzpatrick. He shined last training camp, so if he shines again in this training camp and preseason, who knows? Maybe he has a chance. Scotty Miller is also with Arthur Smith in Atlanta, so he may have a chance to make this roster as well if the Steelers do decide to keep actually 6 receivers instead of 5. So those are the ones I'm keeping. Tight end. Moving over to tight end, this is a tricky one because looking at Atlanta Falcons like to use 4 tight ends on the roster and usually 3 at the same time on the field, meaning that the Steelers may decide to keep an extra tight end, but out of the initial group that I believe the Steelers should keep, it's Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Connor Heyward. Those are the 3 that I believe they should 100% keep. And obviously, the ones that are being cut is Roddy Williams and McCole Pruitt. McCole Pruitt is the one I believe has the best chance of making this roster if another tight end is kept, because he spent time with Arthur Smith in Atlanta, and that's the reason he was brought over to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But those are the 3 tight ends I believe the Steelers will keep, and that's basically locked and set in stone. It just depends if they keep another guy at that position. Also, as you could tell, I'm not keeping a fullback because Connor Heyward can play the fullback position. So you look over to offensive line now, and the Steelers, I believe, will keep it 9 offensive linemen, and these offensive linemen are pretty easy to pick out. Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, James Daniels, Troy Fautanu. Those are the starters, and then the Dan Moore, Mason McCormick, Nate Herbig, and Spencer Anderson are the backups. I believe that should be the depth chart, but those are the 9 just the guys who I believe the Steelers will keep just in general. That means the ones that are being cut are Ryan McCullum, Dylan Cook, Tyler Beach, Anderson Hardy, Devery Hamilton, and Joey Fisher. So it's pretty easy to pick out these 9 offensive linemen, and I believe these are already set in stone as well. Unless injuries happen and stuff changes last second, these are the 9 guys, most obvious 9 guys on the roster, and the most talented offensive linemen that we have. So it's pretty easy to pick out these 9 players. So moving over to the defensive side of the ball now. Looking at the defense, I believe the Steelers will keep 26 defensive players. I never mentioned this with the offense, but the offense, I had them keeping 24. So you look at this, and the defensive players that start off with the defensive line, they will keep 7, I believe. Cameron Heyward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Dean Lowry, Montravius Adams, Isaiah Loudermilk, and DeMarvin Leal. I believe those will be the 7 defense linemen kept. The only tricky one here is their draft pick of this season, which was Logan Lee. That's the only tricky one. I believe it's easy to switch out Logan Lee for Isaiah Loudermilk or DeMarvin Leal. Probably Isaiah Loudermilk will be the first one kicked off if there is a cut made and Logan Lee is kept. But it's really tricky for me. It really depends how Logan Lee plays. But anyway, those other 6 defense linemen, those are basically set in stone, I believe, unless injuries happen again, once again. So these are the 7 offensive linemen that I believe the Steelers will keep. Logan Lee, though, has a good chance of making this roster just based alone. He was a draft pick and he is a rookie. So looking at the outside linebacker group, the Steelers get to keep 3. And the reason why they get to keep 3 is because they have an international player pathway that does not count towards the 53-man roster, which with Julius Walshoff, meaning that they keep TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig, and they could cut all their other edge rushers because Julius Walshoff can make this 53-man roster without actually counting towards the 53, meaning that they'll have 54 players on the roster if he is kept as a 4th outside linebacker. And that is the reason why I'm keeping him as the 4th guy, using that extra advantage of having 54 players. So that means the ones being cut are Davis Perales, Kyron Johnson, Jeremiah Moon, Jacoby Windemoon. So those are the outside linebackers. Moving over to the inside linebacker group, I will be keeping 5 of them. And those 5 will be Patrick Queen, Elan Roberts, Peyton Wilson, Mark Robinson, and Makedovich. I will be keeping those 5. And the reason why Cole Holcomb is not listed is because I believe he will go on the PUP list, meaning that he'll miss like the first 4 games to start the season, and that does not count towards the 53-man roster. I believe these 5 inside linebackers will be kept, and if they only keep 4, it's in between Mark Robinson and Makedovich for the last spot, mainly for special teams, which Makedovich probably has the advantage over because he has been a special teams ace through his career. But this is pretty obvious towards the inside linebacker group. Now, if Cole Holcomb does not go on the PUP list, he will obviously make this roster. So you look at those inside linebackers, and I have them keeping 5, meaning that at the cornerback spots, I have them only keeping 6. Let me start off by saying Cameron Sutton, he will be suspended, so he will not count towards the 53-man roster. He will be on the suspended list. So you look at the ones that they keep, and they will keep Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, Corey Trice Jr., Beanie Bishop Jr., Darius Rush, and the 6th, I believe it's between Josiah Scott and Anthony Everett, but I'm going to keep Josiah Scott. So those are the 6 players that I will keep at the cornerback list. 5 of those guys I believe are set in stone, so really it's a battle between the 6th spot with Josiah Scott and Anthony Everett from what I would believe. And the reason why I'm only keeping 6 cornerbacks is because Cameron Sutton is on the suspended list, and he'll come back in week 10, I believe, after his suspension. But not only that, I have them keeping an extra safety. Usually they only keep 4 safeties, but I have them keeping 5 safeties. And the 5 safeties I have them keeping are Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, DeMonte KZ, Miles Kilabrew, and the last spot being Ryan Watts. I have them keeping Ryan Watts. He could be a cornerback, he could be a safety, he could be a versatile player for this team, and I believe that he would have a better chance of making this roster because of the versatility over Anthony Everett or Josiah Scott, who are strictly basically slot cornerbacks. So I have them keeping Ryan Watts as an extra safety and cornerback, just like how I kept earlier in this video, basically Cordell Patterson as playing both wide receiver and running back. So I was able to keep an extra guy at a certain position. That's how I'm doing with Ryan Watts. He can play both safety and cornerback, so he kind of fills both holes there. So that's why I'm keeping him. Now moving over to the special teams. This is the most obvious position group out of any other position group I named. But obviously, kicker Chris Boswell is being kept, punter Cameron Johnston is being kept, and long snapper Christian Kuntz is being kept. So you look at these players, and Cameron Johnston is a new punter instead of Presley Harvin III, since Presley Harvin III was let go earlier in the offseason, basically the start of free agency. So these are the guys. These are going to be the reliable guys, hopefully. And this is the position group for special teams. So just to recap it, the Steelers keep 24 offense players, 26 defensive players, and they have 3 special teamsmen. So you add that up, 26 plus 24, that is 50, and then you add up the 3 kind of players on special teams, that's 53, and then they basically have 54 because of the international player exemption. So those are the Pittsburgh Steelers 53-man roster. Hopefully you like this video. Hopefully you like me going over these predictions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the players that you believe I kept, that you didn't think were going to make it, or that I cut, that you think was going to make the video, make the team. And let me know your thoughts on that, and then let me know your 53-man roster down in the comments below as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, or just videos like this. Fun ideas going into training camp here shortly. I cover everything Steelers. I'll continue to do so with highlights and analysis on training camp. So, like this video, turn on notifications, subscribe. I'll see you guys all later. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.